The first thing I remember is not her face. It is the sound of a teaspoon touching the edge of a china cup, just once. A small, bright sound in a quiet kitchen. My hand had moved across the table toward hers, and the spoon slipped between her fingers. She pulled back so quickly that the chair leg scraped the floor. I told myself she was shy. I told myself a wife was meant to yield to her husband. For many years I called that obedience. I know better now. My name is Malin. I have been Amish all my life, and I have been a husband, a father, and now a grandfather for more years than I once imagined I would be given. I share these stories because age has a way of taking the excuses out of a memory. Tell me in the comments whether you have ever looked back on something you once thought was normal and understood it differently. When Anna and I married, I was 22 and certain about nearly everything. That is one of the dangers of being young. You can mistake certainty for wisdom because both speak with a steady voice. Our wedding was in November. The fields were already brown, and a thin skin of ice had formed along the water trough before sunrise. Anna wore a dark blue dress she had sewn with her mother. I remember one loose thread near her cuff. I noticed it while we sat beside one another during the meal, but I did not reach over to pull it free. There were too many eyes on us, and I was proud in the way a young man can be proud without knowing he is proud. That evening, after the last wagon had gone and the house had settled, Anna stood near the bedroom window with both hands folded at her waist. The lamp flame was low. It made the glass black, so there was no view outside, only our own pale reflection. I thought I understood what was expected of us. People had spoken to me in careful phrases. A husband leads, a wife follows. Marriage requires submission. No one used cruel words. No one needed to. Sometimes a soft word can carry a hard idea for a very long time. When I stepped toward her, she trembled. I saw it. I cannot say I did not. Her shoulders tightened. Her breath became shallow. She did not tell me no. In the world we lived in, many women had not been taught that no was a word they were permitted to use with a husband. I took her silence as agreement because that was easier for me than asking what her fear meant. I will not dress that memory in prettier language. I did not strike her. I did not shout. I believed myself to be a decent man. That belief protected me from seeing the harm in what I expected. In the morning, Anna rose before I did. I found her kneading bread at the kitchen table. Flour lay across the backs of her hands. She smiled when I entered, but the smile came a little late, as though she had heard my footsteps and remembered what expression she was supposed to wear. I saw that too, and still I called her quietness obedience. The years moved the way farm years do. Planting, haying, harvest, winter. We had children. We buried one infant before he had lived long enough for the church book to hold much more than a name and 2 dates. Anna worked beside me through all of it. She milked cows with a fever. She sat awake with sick children while I slept because I had to be in the field at dawn. She patched my shirt so carefully that I sometimes could not find the tear afterward. I loved her. I want to be plain about that. But love does not make a man harmless, not by itself. For a long time I thought providing was the full measure of a husband. I kept wood stacked. I kept the roof sound. I did not drink. I did not gamble. I brought home what the farm gave us and did not waste it. In my mind, these things proved my goodness. Anna rarely argued with me. I considered that a sign that our marriage was orderly. Now I understand that peace and silence are not the same thing. There were moments I should have questioned. When I placed a hand on her shoulder from behind, she sometimes startled. When I entered a room quickly, she would set down whatever she held. When I made a decision and asked, "You agree, do you not?" she nearly always said yes before I had finished the sentence. A man can train himself not to notice what inconveniences him. The first crack in my certainty came after our oldest daughter, Ruth, had been married for 3 years. She came home one afternoon with her 2 little boys. Rain had darkened the shoulders of her cloak, and the younger child had fallen asleep against her chest. Anna took the boy from her and carried him upstairs. Ruth remained at the table. Her hands were wrapped around a mug, though the tea had gone cold. She asked me, "Dad, when a wife is afraid of her husband, is that still obedience?" There are questions that enter a room and change its shape. I answered too quickly. I said a husband should be gentle and a wife should be faithful. It was the sort of answer that sounded proper and said almost nothing. Ruth looked at me for a long moment. Then she said, "Ma'am was always afraid of disappointing you." That was the only line she gave me. She did not accuse me. She did not raise her voice. She gathered her children before supper and went home. I was angry after she left, not because she had lied, because some part of me knew she had not. That evening I found Anna folding towels in our room. The light from the oil lamp made the walls the color of old honey. I asked her whether she had been afraid of me. She continued folding, one towel, then another. At last she said, "I was afraid of what would happen inside you if I did not become what you expected." I have carried that sentence for more than 30 years. Notice what she did not say. She did not say she feared my fist. She feared my displeasure, my coldness, my certainty that God and tradition stood behind every preference I had. She feared that if she resisted me, I would not need to punish her with violence. I could punish her by making her feel disobedient, ungrateful, or sinful. That kind of power leaves no bruise a neighbor can see. I sat on the edge of the bed. The mattress rope creaked beneath me. I asked why she had never told me. Anna placed the folded towel on the stack and said, "You never asked a question whose answer could change you." That was her one line. She had spoken many words to me across the years, but none had ever shown me myself so clearly. I wanted to defend myself. I wanted to list the things I had done right. The roof, the woodpile, the children's shoes, the years I had stayed faithful. A younger man keeps such a list close at hand. But sitting there, I understood that goodness is not a ledger. You cannot cancel another person's fear by pointing to the chores you completed. So I asked her to tell me. Not everything came that night. Trust does not return because a man has finally become willing to hear the truth. Anna spoke slowly over months and years. Sometimes she remembered an evening from early in our marriage. Sometimes she told me about a decision I had made without her. Sometimes she described how she had learned to watch my face before answering a question. The hardest part was not hearing that I had hurt her. The hardest part was hearing how ordinary it had felt to me while it was happening. I had not woken each morning intending to frighten my wife. I had simply accepted a way of thinking that placed my comfort above her freedom and then gave it a holy name. There are people who will hear this and say I am judging the old ways by new standards. I have thought about that. I am an old man. I know the temptation to defend yesterday simply because it is where we learned our own name. But fear was fear then too. A trembling hand did not become harmless because a preacher called it submission. Silence did not become consent because a husband preferred not to ask. A wife did not stop being a full human soul when she entered marriage. Those truths are not new. We were simply practiced at looking away from them. I began changing in small ways because large promises had become cheap to me. I stopped asking questions that already contained the answer I wanted. I began saying, "Tell me what you think." And then I waited through the silence without filling it for her. At first, Anna did not trust the waiting. She would look at me as though there were a hidden cost. Sometimes there was. I would feel irritation rise when she disagreed. I had to learn that my discomfort was not proof of her wrongdoing. It was only discomfort. A man can survive more of that than he imagines. I apologize for particular things, not for being imperfect. That is too broad and easy. I apologize for the first years of our marriage, when I treated her fear as duty. I apologize for decisions about money, children, and family that I had presented as final before she had spoken. I apologize for using faith as a weight on her side of the scale. She did not always forgive me immediately. That was another lesson. Repentance is not a key you turn in someone else's heart. You do not get to decide when the door opens. Over time, Anna changed too, or perhaps she became more visible to me. She laughed more freely. She contradicted me in front of the children. Once, when I announced that we would replace the south fence before planting, she said, "No, Malin, we will mend the roof first, unless you plan to catch the rain in buckets all spring." The children became very quiet. Then I laughed, not because she had made a joke, because I realized how many years it had taken for her to say such a simple thing without fear. We repaired the roof first. In our later years, when I reached for her hand across the table, she no longer pulled away, but I never took that for granted. Her hand was not mine because a vow had transferred ownership. It was hers, and every time she placed it in mine, it was a gift newly given. Anna died 6 winters ago. The last week of her life, she was too weak to speak much. Snow had gathered against the lower window panes, and the room smelled of wool blankets and the peppermint oil our daughter rubbed beneath her nose. I sat beside her and asked whether she had known in the end that I loved her. She opened her eyes and pressed my fingers once. I cannot tell you exactly what that meant. Age has made me less willing to claim certainty where none was given. I choose to receive it as mercy, not proof that I had made everything right. There are wrongs time cannot erase. There are wounds an apology cannot make as though they never happened. But a person can still turn toward truth. A husband can stop calling fear respect. A family can stop naming silence peace. A community can decide that tradition is not made weaker when cruelty is removed from it. What 70 years have taught me is simple. Obedience that depends on fear is not love. Love asks, Love listens. Love makes room for an answer it may not enjoy. And when the person beside you trembles, love does not congratulate itself on being obeyed. Love stops. Love pays attention. I wish I had understood that when I was 22, standing beside a black window with the lamp turned low. I cannot return to that room. I cannot give Anna back the years when she watched my face before speaking, but I can tell the truth about them now. And perhaps that truth will reach one husband before his wife grows quiet. Perhaps it will reach one wife who has been taught that fear is holiness. Perhaps it will reach a son or daughter who has sensed something wrong, but lacked the words for it. If these stories help you look at your own life with greater honesty, you are welcome to subscribe and sit with me again. And I would like to ask you one thing. What belief did you inherit that you later had to examine for yourself?